So guys, we've gone through, a bunch of slides here. We've talked about the best audio solution, the steps to duplicate, kind of what products to use. Should you be using Design Center task programming, mapping connections. Talked about some sample projects that have been done in a standalone Nuvo amplification and source system. And we've talked about some of the premier partners. The thing about Equinox is that it's new. As Andrew mentioned, it's a new platform. It's something that is different than has been done before, by us here at Vantage. So we want you to know there are several things that you're going to want to be familiar with that you can take away as, let's say, a checklist. First on the list is get trained. There are things really that are beyond the scope of this presentation to know. There's a lot of devil in the details. But the last thing you want to be doing is sitting on a bucket somewhere down in your mechanical room or electrical room trying to find a cell signal to call tech support to find out, well, what the heck do I do now? Is this the way it's supposed to work? So get trained. There are lots of options for that that Forrest will talk about. That's going to be the most important first step for you guys. And as you go through the list, we mentioned the network. Make sure the network is solid. Use premier partners. Find that EQ driver, if you can, in there, and use premier partners where possible. If you can't find premier partner drivers for the products in that project, you have some options. You can use the scenes widget. We can take a look at what the development schedule will be for premier partners. You can potentially change out the gear if it's older. That's always hard for customers, we know. But this is how you're going to make the audio solution work for these projects. I'll call out one of the other ones that's down there in the middle talking about conversions. This is perhaps one of the most challenging areas for you as a dealer as you take a look at implementing Equinox. This will perhaps require the most work. You may have a job that's working perfectly for a customer in Infusion or in Q, and you want to take them up to Equinox. They want the newest apps, they've seen something or you've shown them something and they can upgrade. So as you take a look at that file, just because it's working perfectly with older programming and older drivers does not mean that that driver that you are using is up to par and compatible with Equinox. There are steps and interfaces required for Equinox. As we go back to that step number 2 for Design Center setup, you remember where we set up the mapping and then the UI automatically generates the user experience based on what the Design Center file is? Well, part of that is the driver. And if the driver for a set-top box, for a cable box as an example, only has navigation up, down, left, and right, but doesn't have any transport commands, well, that's fine. But if you want to be able to fully control that set-top box inside of the Equinox UI, then that driver needs to be fully learned and fully vetted out with all of the interfaces so that all of the parts and pieces are ready. Okay, so check for driver compatibility. This may mean that as you move forward from an older project and move forward into the new Equinox world, you may need to replace that driver with one that is compatible with Equinox and then edit the corresponding tasks. That may be part of it. So that's part of that preparation work. Get ready by knowing what the project is and taking a look at those drivers. Another thing that we have found, and this is one of the benefits of working with Equinox, is that all of those tasks can disappear that are superfluous now. All of those volume ups and downs and repeat volume up and down, or repeat volume or repeat channel or whatever it may be, that's going to not be necessary anymore. So as you delete all of those hundreds of tasks that you were using for each zone, you will tremendously do two things. One, decrease the file size, and you will speed up the programming time as you download to the processors. We're already really fast at download times, as you guys can attest. but will be even faster as you get rid of unnecessary tasks. Okay. I think one other point that I will make here as an important point to remember as you're making mental notes is that just because a release goes out, let's say for example, update 1 went out today. That means the Design Center software and the Equinox 7.3 firmware will become available immediately, as will actually the Android apps, because they post our updates to their app store within a couple of hours. However, Apple typically takes about a week after we submit the app to allow for the app to be released to the public as they go through their review process. So that means even though we've announced the update, your customers who use Apple products will not be able to see all the fixes and changes and improvements to the audio solution or other widgets that we have put in until after that is released. So you'll want to plan your trip out to upgrade or update your projects until you'll want to schedule that around whenever, till after that update has happened into the App Store. So you're not making 2 and 3 trips back out there. So you can do the Nouveau firmware perhaps, the controller firmware, 7.3 firmware and apps all at the same time. So guys, there's more to this, obviously. There's a lot of good information in here. But here's those are some of the things that we've learned. So what's next? I think that you guys should be really excited. In my opinion, I'm excited. The audio solution has a lot of fantastic options. We have some upcoming drivers coming out. For example, we're going to add the Mosaic's new 2-way IP driver. We've been working with those guys for a couple of years. Right now, Mosaic's can be used, but only used through the Vantage Infusion Media Server software, so it acts like a Vantage DMM. But they have a new API and an ability for us to integrate with it. We're also going to be adding Last.fm and Deezer to the Nouveau Player series. And as soon as Nouveau makes it available to us inside of their API, we'll be adding the ability to create new channels, to create presets, etc., which we cannot do today, and nor any other manufacturer can. So in the widget arena, there's some things that we're going to be doing here in the near future. For example, in the music widget, as you go across zones or sources and you see the ribbon pop up, we're going to be adding feedback and metadata on the status ribbon for sources as you're trying to pick it. The now playing information, so you don't have to swipe through to each of these to see what's playing. You'll be able to see at a glance what all the zones are playing. We'll also be adding a hot button slide out to the music widget. So that can be populated by you to have some specific commands while inside of the audio widget rather than having to bounce out to the scenes widget to execute a task or a command and then bounce back into the full screen audio widget. So that will be added shortly. And then we're considering the opportunity perhaps for soft zone linking. Maybe you want some, rather than hard linking, if you will, inside of Design Center, maybe you want some soft temporary linking for party mode perhaps, or maybe you have 2 zones that you want to always have be linked, and we're thinking about allowing that inside of the UI as well. So not only do we have driver work ongoing and improvements to our existing set of drivers like Autonomic, I should have mentioned Autonomic, where we're adding some of the features in there that have been missing like SiriusXM. But we also have the music widget features that we're working on in the upcoming months. And then Design Center, which is the glue, brings all of this together. We're going to be adding an Equinox View similar to enclosure view and area views, bus views, etc., where you can, at a glance, see everything going on inside of the widget arena, whether it be a 7.3 or a tablet, and what widgets will populate with what information before you even dump it down to the controller. You know, and we're going to improve the way we handle driver and project conversions and make you more aware of potential issues. Maybe, as we talked about with that driver conversion with an older project, that you may not be aware of. So we're going to do our best to give you more information about what that could mean to you. And then, of course, adding some additional reports on widgets and 4.0 engraving detail, etc. So those are some of the exciting things in here. Guys, it's really an exciting time to be part of Vantage, to be a part of the Equinox platform, the Equinox development, the Equinox story. I know there's a lot of information in here that we've covered today, but I know that you guys can and should do audio. The audio solution with Equinox is absolutely amazing if you follow those steps. And there's help along the way. You know, and more information, more features coming to strengthen our position as the best experience provider. You start with lighting and then bolt on the audio solutions and impress your customers.